for some Technicolor televisions? What about some science fiction satellites? Well, we've got them both, and they're just this way at the Dim Carnival.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dim Carnival. I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are excited.
So excited
to talk to you guys this week about Forgotten Freshness Volume 3. It is, we talked previously about the first Forgotten Freshness, 1 and 2, which is a double album that came out in the 90s. And that was a collection of, it's just what it says on the tin. Forgotten Freshness, there was like rarities and B-sides. But this is the last release that has like new ICP stuff on it before the 6th Joker's cards come out. This was released on December 18th, 2001, just in time for Christmas, which everyone appreciates. I don't remember it coming out so close to Christmas, but hey, because I picked this up like pretty soon after it came out. I feel like I did that. Ryan, were you mostly unfamiliar? Because Steve and I are very familiar with this album, but I don't know. Were you mostly unfamiliar with this? Completely unfamiliar?
Okay, so I remember. So you had definitely played for me the track when Vampiro Gets High or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we laughed for hours and hours and hours over the course of our friendship. But going back and listening to this, I remember that you guys had mentioned at one time or another the song Cartoon Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
So I remembered that title. And then listening to it, I remembered Walk Like an Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
I have that specific memory. So it must have been that you played this for me and you played several tracks.
Mm-hmm. But you weren't really familiar with any of the songs.
I remembered the Walk Like an Egyptian line. But I don't remember anything else other than the Vampiro stuff. So nice. To me, it was like very fresh and new to me.
Cool. Well, we are talking this week. We're talking about the first 5 tracks off it, or we're going to attempt to talk about the first 5 tracks off it. We'll see how far we get. You guys know the drill by now. The first track is an intro, and then we're talking about Cartoon Nightmares, Posse on Vernor, Fly Away with featuring Zug Island, and It. Which you'll find very familiar if you listened to our Dark Lotus tracks. But let's just talk about the Forgotten Freshness 3 in general, because this has a good amount of it does have some B-sides, it does have some stuff that previously existed on compilations, but it has a good amount of like pretty original stuff as far as the Forgotten Freshness generally goes. And I feel like, personally, this is a super important album, not just like in the history of Insane Clown Posse, but I think that at the time, it coming out when it did was like really vital and important for ICP because Mikey Clark had left, and this was sort of the album that got to really showcase Mike P's production style and what he was capable of bringing to the table before the all-important 6 Joker's cards came out, because it sort of gave Juggalos a chance to get to hear what they were capable of without being produced by Mikey Clark, which is all that fans had really ever known up to that point. So I think that I feel like in a lot of ways it was sort of a tactical release. Like, they put out Forgotten Freshness, they had done it before, it was a thing that was known to happen, but especially because, as Violent J talks about in his autobiography, as Violent J talks about in his autobiography, the 6 Joker's card wasn't coming to them very easily, and it took a long time for them to figure out what the 6 Joker's card or cards was going to be. and that combined with the fact that Mikey Clark left, I'm sure that some fans were a little bit trepidatious or concerned or unsure of what the future was going to hold. So I feel like this release coming out when it did was pretty important to everything that happened.
That was fucking rad, dude. Like,
Yeah.
at the time, I would have never thought that, and without having you putting it into a historical context like that, it definitely wouldn't have occurred to me, but I really, really think that's a cool and interesting take or whatever. That sounds really, yeah.
Well, I know I personally was like, when I found out that Mike Clark left, I was like, oh, maybe their stuff's going to suck from now on, and Mike left before the Six Jokers card came out. Like, that sucks.
Right.
But then when I heard this stuff, I was like, oh, I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I rember you and I talking about that, and just being like, oh boy, let's hear this, and like just being real skeptical at first, like, no, I'm not gonna like this. Boy, was I wrong.
So let's go ahead and should we jump into the first track, or do you guys have anything to say about just Forgotten Freshness in general before we jump in?
I'll just say one quick thing. I just remember it being a really fun time of, like, I remember I was sleeping on the floor of my parents' house, and because I just sleep I was like in between home, and just laying there listening to this album, really just like fun stuff that friends, and so I associate so many that it makes me like these songs even more, even if other people are like, this is an awful album. Like, no way.
Yeah, I have very, very vivid memories of just driving around Salinas and listening to this album in my car a lot. So, all right. Let's talk about let's not like do a toss to it. Let's just talk about the intro for this album, which is a commercial. I think it's a super cool way to kick off this album of rarities and B-sides and stuff. It's a radio commercial that ran in the Detroit area in 1994, and it's promoting their Ringmaster concerts, like the Ringmaster tour, basically, but like locally. I think it's like really cool to hear, because it's like, oh yeah, you used to like promote rap shows on the radio. Like, it's such a novel concept. Like, it's such a pre-internet concept of like, here's a band that's coming. If you haven't heard them, here's little snippets of their songs.
Yeah, well, okay. So here, couple things. One thing is, I said last week, the homie Jiggles has been updating his Hatchet History WordPress. He is trying to keep ahead of us so that we can actually utilize some of what he's put up there as a resource. He has all of the info up for Forgotten Freshness 3. Included in that is track by track the liner notes, and there's a message or information about each track that's in the liner notes of the CD, which gives background about what the track's about. And so, according to those liner notes in '94, ICP, the only people in the entire world who knew who ICP were, lived in Detroit, Flint, and Toledo, Michigan. And those were within like an hour and a half drive radius. And so when they're saying the Ringmaster tour, they played 3 shows in those 3 cities where the only people who knew them were. And that was the big Ringmaster tour back in '94. But apparently this Violent J was like cleaning or something and found a box of cassettes and found this on a cassette tape, and that's why they had it available to add to this. And
that's awesome.
What a fun, cool way to start. And also, the songs that they chose to put in that are like the best songs on the Ringmaster album. They picked really, really good ones for the commercial, I think.
Yeah.
What it reminds me of is there was a period of time, I think when I was in high school, it had to have been when I was in high school, where it was a number you could call and preview CDs. Like, you could call a phone number and hear clips from albums. And it was basically like it was basically like a really shitty version of like Blockbuster Music, but on the telephone.
Wow.
Yeah. And obviously like Apple like does something like that now, where it's like you can hear like 15 or 30 seconds from a track. And,
I was gonna say, I thought it was like that.
And I very specifically remember, like, I listened to previews of like the first like 3 NoFX albums, like the shitty ones that I like wasn't sure I wanted to buy, and I never did. But I'm stunned. I'm stunned, but I'm also not at all surprised in any way that like I'm the only person who is fucking calling a phone number to hear a joke in a CD and shit. You know, there were a lot of albums that I would want where, especially when I didn't have the internet, I would have to like, if I wanted that album, I would have to like find a way to go to like Santa Cruz or San Francisco or whatever. So like I can only fucking imagine like what people in like South Dakota were doing, or like, you know, like that was probably a cool thing for them where they could like call a number, and if they wanted a CD, they could just have it shipped to them. Like that was probably pretty rad. If anyone remembers what the fuck I'm talking about, please give us an email, dimcarnival@gmail.com. I'd like to know I'm not alone in this universe. Anyway, very cool way to start the album. And then finally Jay comes on and he says, that was from 1994. And then he throws it to the present day and starts off Forgotten Freshness Volume 3 with a track called Cartoon Nightmares. And oh boy, if you haven't listened to Cartoon Nightmares, you should listen to it right now. Guys, no mistake no fooling when I say this is one of my favorite Insane Clown Posse tracks ever. I talked about going to see them live most recently, and I told you how stoked I was that they played this track on the Hallowicked tour that I saw them on. And apparently this was originally this is the first time this song appeared, was on Forgotten Freshness 3. It's the first time it appeared anywhere. But according to Jiggles, this was originally intended to be the Hallowicked single for 2001, but it was scrapped in favor of another song that appears later on this Forgotten Freshness. But hot damn, guys, I love this song so much. I think this is a stellar song.
Yep. This song kicks fucking ass. This is definitely one of my favorite. There's that effect of newness. That something I didn't remember this song apart from the Walk Like an Egyptian line that I mentioned earlier. This song fucking kicks ass, top to bottom. This song is amazing.
T to B.
Steve didn't like it.
Oh, I love it. No, I absolutely love it. Like I said, I have fond memories of just like laying in bed listening to the song and laughing. Great. There's an arm in my trunk. An arm in my trunk.
I was thinking about that track last night when I was going to bed and being like, we get to talk about this tomorrow.
No, I love it. There's so many great things in it. I mean, I think of it now, and even back then, just thinking of it as a concept of Forgotten Freshness, I was always just like, how could this be left off something? And as you explained it now, it makes sense that it kind of technically wasn't left off anything, just kind of like a precursor to building up to something. So it's just such a great song. It would fit as a best song on so many albums, you know. So much fun listening to it.
To me, it's like the best possible version of like that first track off of Bizarre, like the one that's like the Shigadoo, like the one that's like trying to be
oh yes,
like a party song. It's like the best possible version of that. And I think that it maybe is intentional that it evokes that a little bit, because this is the first song that most fans were cognizant of Mike P producing. You like produce tracks on Dark Lotus, but like there's no liner notes. Like people don't really know about that. Like even at the time, they didn't really like. They might have heard like Mike P produced some tracks off of Dark Lotus, but like no one could really pinpoint anything specifically. So I think maybe this is him trying to flex and be like, I can do the Mike Clark shit too.
Yeah. What was it? We talked about that. It must have been during Dark Lotus. About how they embrace these elements that have become tied to ICP, but they still do it. He still does it in his own way with his own unique sound. Like, to me, this feels like ICP, but it also feels different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the production is stellar on this song. Everything's put together really, really well, and they do a ton of fun things. I would say that this is the opposite of boring. Like, you know, it's fun and fresh and different throughout the whole track. It keeps you excited or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's the best. Like, ICP's at the best when they're just like fucking wilding out, and they're just like, you know, dancing, you know, and there's so many, like, there's like they put a shit ton of like reverb on his, or like not reverb, but they put a shit ton of distortion on Violent, like a robot voice on his voice at one point.
It's like tremolo and and all that. Yeah, I thought he almost sounds like Jamie Madrox on that line.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, it's all that like random horror, sci-fi, fun, weirdo stuff all mixed together. That's my favorite ICP stuff. You know, it's like all your favorite things together.
To me, especially as someone who's listened to their music further than you two guys, I feel like listening to this song now, when it kicked on, I was like, oh my god, this is like the beginning of them not sounding how they used to sound, and like the ICP that they kind of are now as far as sounds. And not that everything they do sounds like this, but just, I don't know, there's just something different about it, and not bad, and it's good, and it's not necessarily better. It's just like a new wave. You know what I mean? And I don't even know that it really reflects on the Jokers, the last two Joker, or the last Joker's card. There's two albums, but things like this song reminds me of stuff that they will be doing more and more and sounding like later on in other albums, and the feel of it. And I really this time through hearing that, thinking, wow, this is really neat.
Yeah, and like, especially for you know, I can speak for myself, but hopefully for like, because like you'll, you know, back, you know, when I was more active in like my fandom, like I would go online and see what like people were saying about certain stuff. Not necessarily for this album, but at times I would like go online and like see what people were saying, and like, you know, occasionally I'll also like, you know, watch something on YouTube and I'll see like what juggalos are talking about in the comments and stuff. And I know that there's always gonna be periods of like fans being like, nah, I'm not into what they're doing. I miss what they used to sound like, and I miss like what they used to do. And I know that there's like always constantly going to be people like falling off, and like people who it's like that for every band and every act and everything of like, I don't like this as much as I used to, or this is different than I was expecting, so I'm not into it, or anything like that. But for me, like I'm sure that there were some people who were turned off by this track, but to me, especially like listening now, thinking about in hindsight, I'm like, how could you not, if you followed ICP, how could you not be fucking jazzed hearing this song about like, oh shit, this is what this is what I'm in store for. This is what's coming up.
Yeah. I wish I could have felt that way about Metallica's Loadout.
Yeah, well, that's different.
Yeah, I wonder.
Sucks. No, I mean, I still really like Hero of the Day. Like, I was thinking about that recently.
When you put it that way, Bill, it's really interesting to me because I was kind of as I mentioned last week, I was kind of on my way out of the fandom at this point. I bought Bizarre Bizarre. I ended up getting Dark Lotus, Tales from the Lotus Pod, and I knew I would get the 6th Joker's card. I don't even know whether I don't even remember whether I knew this album came out at the time. And if I had heard it, because the song is so fucking good, I can't imagine I wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah, but you weren't on your way out of the fandom because you didn't like the music anymore, right?
I think I was just getting over like the kind of general tone of the band.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't think that something that felt familiar would have changed the way I felt about it. But this is a really, really good song. And so if I had heard something that I really liked, it might have made me hang on a little bit tighter or maybe feel differently when the 6th Joker's card eventually came out. I don't know. But I really, really like it now, and I can't imagine that this isn't going to become, one of my favorite ICP songs. Like, this basically is the whole reason right now why I wanted to do this show. It was the hope, and so, like, that we would come across new stuff that I would really love. And I guess I expected to some extent that I would like, obviously, things that they did, but this just really, really gives me hope. I guess maybe I'm feeling that right now, that I would have otherwise felt, back in 2001 or whatever.
Yeah. Hot damn.
Excited about what's to come.
So
I'm
good,
excited
guys.
to go over some albums I really like that you guys don't really know well. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I want to know if you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited to get past all the shit talking. And
so I think it's really funny that in the first verse, Shaggy says, "I'm sick of rock guitars always lacing our shit." Because the guitar is the whole song to me. Like, the guitar makes and drives this whole song. And it's very, very good. All the little noodling and shit that gets thrown in, like, amazing. And then there's also, I don't always know if I use my music terms correctly, but like a walking bass throughout the whole thing. That just makes it, that keeps that, like, drive, like, pushing the listener forward the whole time. Really, really good musical choices, I think.
And I'm sure that Mike Clark plays instruments. Like, how could he not? But when they started the Mike P era, they were always very emphatic about how, like, Mike P plays all the instruments on the tracks that he did. And you'll see a lot less of, like, Legs Diamond and stuff like that going forward. But, like, basically all the instruments that you hear on this track are Mike P.
That's rad.
Yeah.
I felt like the theme of this song and the music also was a reflection of the times of just what was happening in pop culture at that time. At least maybe not major pop culture, but like in the window of people that we knew in Salinas and stuff. And that made me like this song more. Even though if we showed this to anyone else, they didn't like it. But I always just like the way the drum sounds, like that snare. It just kind of reminded me of like what some of the like pop punk bands and stuff, how they had that like that I don't know, like tremolo is that the right snare? I forget now, so many years. But like this, like it has like this sound to the snare that was very prominent in a lot of music at that time. And
there's so much pop culture reference in this song, and I love all of it. And like possibly the thing that stood out to me the most, like the first time I heard the song, is like, I never in a million years would have expected ICP to reference Elderly Woman Behind the Counter in a Small Town by Pearl Jam, let alone Violet J to just belt out a line from it.
Right. We'll get in the lyrics wrong a little bit.
No, I seem to recognize this place.
Oh, I thought it was I seem to recognize your face. I thought the real words were I seem to recognize your face.
Oh, yeah, you're actually correct. Sorry.
Well, anyways, and he says on the back on the Jekyll Brothers sampler, he goes talking about Eddie Vedder, and we'll go together.
Yeah.
He kind of makes fun of the way that he sings, but he has said before that he's a fan of Eddie Vedder, and so I think he really is just, and you might be able to hear that a little bit on a later track this week. But yeah, he does it out of love, man. If he makes fun of you, he does it out of love.
Yeah,
I think.
Like how often they make fun of Michael Jackson.
Right.
Yeah. But this song, I still don't understand what the Walk Like Egyptian part is for. Maybe it's,
who knows?
Maybe it's because they had just done Dark Lotus and like they were so steeped in.
I thought the same thing, and I was just trying to like, all right, let me try to make some kind of connection, where some like mystery schools would have us believe that that the hieroglyphics that are in the pyramids and all the different carvings throughout Egypt are actually depictions of real beings, and so like with this song being about like drawing these cartoon nightmares and then they're out doing it, And so I was just like, maybe that's like a vague reference of like where like the Egyptian carvings were real monsters that come alive or were a lot, you know what I mean?
Nice.
And it's a super huge stretch, but that was the only thing I tried to link together.
By the way,
Wow.
I wanted to make sure that I said this, emphatically at some point. But I just listened to a bunch of like last podcasts on the lefts about chaos magic and like left hand path, the right hand path, and Aleister Crowley and shit. And I really want to give props to that entire Dark Lotus crew for like being super well read about all of this shit, and like they pretty much nailed everything that they were like going for. Like they and I don't know who in that group was responsible for all that, but they didn't do it incorrectly. So
it makes me think about how fucked up our educational system is, that because ICP have so much of their early content is about how they were failed by the educational system. And these guys, they might not be what you would describe as intelligent, but they're smart,
Sure.
and they can think about some stuff and put some shit together. But I don't think that our educational system or the way that we expect people to be smart is a little bit too rigid. Not to give these guys too much credit, but what I thought it was, Steve, was that he's saying in the chorus he's saying like, will you draw me? He's draw my figure. And I'll be move, since he's a drawn figure, he'll be moving like a hieroglyphic would,
Yeah.
But we also did say, you were talking about those beings being real, and we did talk about that, or I mentioned briefly a couple of episodes ago about the construction of the pyramids and polygonal masonry and lost high technology. So I'm always thinking about that stuff, which I think is really fun too.
Yeah, nice.
All that shit, all those hieroglyphics, the Egyptians found that shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
They found it. They didn't build it.
No.
Aliens.
I don't think it was aliens, but
aliens.
But I don't really think the song is really like the verses are all. It's really random, right? It's all haphazard stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
do some fun references.
Well, yeah. The Nelly.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, the arm in my trunk callback is very good. Like,
Right.
everything's good. Everyone's so on point. The main, probably the thing I think about the most from this track is, look at that girl.
Yes. Booty in a pants. Booty in a pants. That's where the booty goes, I think it's interesting that they're talking about a clothed woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a novel thing for them to sing about a woman who's clothed.
Oh, check her out. She's got her booty in her pants.
Right.
Oh,
What?
I've been doing it all wrong.
Guys, I want to ask a serious question on this podcast. How big Andre Giant's dick is?
Probably not very big.
Compared to Andre the Giant's finger.
Yeah. I think his finger's much bigger.
I think, well, it's not like Andre the Giant has a Violent J-sized restroom area, though. So just because, I think there's a little bit of logical fallacy there or whatever.
Wait, what do you say? You think
He said it'd be so rad to be Andre the Giant because you'd have big fat fingers, but you'd also have a big fat Andre dick, maybe.
Oh, I think his point is that it's cool that you like wouldn't even have to get your pee-pee out, or that you could pleasure several women at once because of your big sausage fingers.
But would she think it was Andre the Giant's dick? If Andre the Giant has an Andre the Giant dick, she might think it's Violent J's dick, maybe. This is my point.
The Violent J's dick to twist its dick. You've seen her come, you've seen her go, you've seen her come again. This song rules in every conceivable way, basically. Except for, killing hookers at night. You shouldn't kill hookers anytime.
Yeah, that part's a little stale. I love, you mentioned the arm in the trunk part, and I just love that it continues through the whole song, and they keep coming back to arm in the trunk, and then it's right at the very, very end that you get that good payoff, where Violent J admits that it was him and Billy Bill the whole time.
Yeah.
He never would have noticed, but it stunk so bad.
I want to see of an arm with a bunch of in between Subway bread with a bunch of mayo, and
Double
Shaggy just like
mayo,
eating it, like, biting through the fingers.
Where you guys stand on mayo?
Love it.
Divisive issue on the internet.
It's good. Typical white guy. I like it.
I don't think Ryan likes mayo.
I'm pretty grossed out by mayonnaise, you guys.
I don't like the look or texture of it, so
yeah, you just gotta eat it.
You just gotta eat it. Even if you're dipping your French fries in it, just do it. Just fucking do it.
That's
it's so good. God,
What? I just got the chills thinking about that.
add a little bit of ketchup in there, and you get yourself makeshift Thousand
secret
Island.
sauce.
Throw some relish. Woo!
The last thing I want to talk about off this track is I think they both go super hard in this song, and the part that gets me really pumped up is the blood oozes down the screen, off the page and magazine, off the table to the floor, across the tile, out the door.
Guys, when is Bill? You're the one who's keeping track of all these records. When are we gonna get to Wizard of the Hood? Is that what it's called?
It's after the Six Jokers cards.
Okay, that's right.
It's not too far after. It's not too far after. I don't think, right, Steve? I think it comes out before like the Tempest and shit, right?
Yes, and the Calm. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So there's been a few mentions of marijuana in earlier tracks.
Thank you, Ryan. This is the other thing I wanted to talk about.
And in most cases, and I'm not sure even if this might be a famous first, where he's taking ownership. Like normally he's like, oh, the cars, we're hotboxing the car, but it ain't mine, you know, or Shaggy's smoking and it's not me. But here we have Violent J saying he likes marijuana medicine from Tennessee.
Yeah. So I feel like the two most important things that happen between the 5th and 6th Jokers card are 1, Mikey Clark leaves, and 2, Jay begins smoking marijuana in earnest. And he talks about, so there were 2 versions of the Wraith Shangri-La that came out. And one of them had like a live concert DVD. So the 2 versions were basically just that they had 2 discs in the package, but one of the discs was a DVD. And so there were 2 different DVDs that the Wraith came with. And one of them was a concert, and the other one was a seminar from the ICP seminar from the previous year's gathering of the Juggalos. And it's a really fun and interesting thing to watch, because it's mostly them talking about like what was then the upcoming Six Jokers card, and all the stuff that had been going on with them in the previous year. It's like an hour long, and it's like, really, if you can track that down, like I'm sure someone has put it up on YouTube at some point. If you want to check that out, it's really interesting if you've never seen it. But to me, the part that I remember the most from that seminar, and it's also something that Jay talks about in his book. He talks about like what a hard time he was having, in the Dark Lotus era, and just like super depressed, and everything was sort of going wrong for him. And then I think the way he put it was like he like held up his fingers like the Universal smoking a joint pantomime, and he was like, but then I went to the herbery, y'all, and started talking about how, he started smoking weed, and it really evened him out and helped him out with shit. And I think that that's rad. Like, I think that, there's the argument to be made for like not self-medicating and stuff, but I think that like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of mental issues, and anything that you can find that helps you with those issues, like you should probably like investigate that more. I think it's awesome that he was able to find this thing that like that, combined with him, he started going for a walk every night, and then that turned into him going for a run every night, and he lost a shit ton of weight between like even Dark Lotus and the Six Jokers card coming out, because when we saw him in San Francisco at the Dark Lotus tour, when they revealed the shape of the Six Jokers card, he was super big. You remember that, right, Steve?
Yeah.
He was big old boy. But he lost a ton of weight before the Six Jokers card came out, and you know, I've been there too. Like I've gained and lost a ton of weight a bunch of times, and so has Jay. So I identify. But yeah, so he started smoking weed a bunch, and he lost a lot of weight, and he got a lot happier. And then the Six Jokers card came out, and they refer to the era of the Wraith Shangri-La, which is the first of the two Six Jokers cards. They refer to that era as the Shiny Diamonds era, because it was raining diamonds all the time for them. Like, that's how they felt. Like, we can't do any wrong. We're killing it. Like, we've nailed the Six Jokers card, and life is good. And then it sort of got depressing for them again when the Six Jokers card came out, probably because of how intensely negative that album is. So, but yeah, that's the mindset of everything, and you can really hear it on this track. Is just, you know, everything's good. I'm feeling good. Life's good. We got our new producer. Let's fucking go.
If this isn't my favorite song on the album, I am gonna lose my mind. Like, I like this song so much.
You're not prepared to like a song more than this.
Right. I'm just, yeah, I'll blow my top if there's a song I like better on this.
Awesome.
I love this song, but it's definitely not my favorite song on this album.
Oh, that makes me so excited.
I'm a little bit surprised by that, but that's exciting to me too. So shall we continue the journey, gentlemen, or is there more to say about Cartoon Nightmares?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
I got to go. All right, let's talk about the second track off of this album, and we probably won't get to all the four that we intended to. So let's talk about Posse on Vernor. If you haven't taken a listen, go ahead and take a listen right now. Guys, this is a cover of a classic Sir Mix-a-Lot track, and Ryan, you're probably I'm assuming you were, because you texted us. So, listen, guys, Posse on Vernor. And because you had texted us when you heard Cartoon Nightmares, and you're like, holy shit. And then you're like, oh my god, Posse on Vernor. So I'm assuming that you were familiar with the Sir Mix-a-Lot track.
Yeah, for sure, man. You gotta love Sir Mix-a-Lot. There was, let's see, I think a long time ago on the Instagram, I posted a link to a YouTube video of Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope at Amoeba Records. And it's a segment that's called What's in Your Bag? Yeah, What's in Your Bag?
Yeah.
And I don't remember which Sir Mix-a-Lot album Shaggy buys, but he gives him a shout out, gives him some love. And so that's the first thing that I thought of when I heard this, and it made me really excited. I'm not a huge Sir Mix-a-Lot fan.
Except for Bucking My Horse.
Bucking My Horse is the best Sir Mix-a-Lot song by a country mile.
You're correct.
Yeah, that song fucking rules. But I do like Sir Mix-a-Lot, and I appreciate him. And I do also like when other people like things, and so that makes me really excited. Not only it's like he's doing a Sir Mix-a-Lot impression on this, you know. Yeah. He emulates his style to a very pleasurable degree. I find this song extremely fun to listen to. And he does an amazing job. I would say so far of the songs that I know that they've redone, this falls just short of Jump Around in terms of how much I love it. It's very, very good rewrite.
Nice.
You know, Bill, do you remember we found this on a mixed compilation?
Oh yeah, we found this on Take a Bite Out of Rhyme, which is
Take a Bite Out of Rhyme. Yes. Okay, we got to talk about this record, you guys.
So and we found it at the Amoeba that they did that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What's in the Bag?
What's in the Bag? Yeah, on Hate Street.
Mm-hmm.
So Take a Bite Out of Rhyme was
a rock tribute to rap is what it's called.
Right. It was a compilation album that was put out on, oh shit, I can't remember the record label. Republic Records, and it had a bunch of rock bands, or like late 90s, early 2000 rock bands, covering classic rap songs. Mm-hmm. Public Enemy, Run DMC, Ghetto Boys. This is actually where the song that I knew that I'd heard before was Dynamite Hack's cover "Boys in the Hood," which was like an MTV Buzz Club or whatever.
But I don't think it came from this album. I think that Dynamite Hack's cover like existed and then they put it on this album.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, but I could be wrong.
Well, in any case, It's an interesting album. Bands like Stained, but then there's some other like really 90s bands like the Bloodhound Gang, Fun Loving Criminals.
Yeah, I for sure bought this album, and I for sure never listened to another track off it except for the ICP.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to say about it. Lords of Brooklyn are on this, and I don't even know. I didn't listen to the full track, but it was all right. It's like an acoustic cover of a Run DMC song, Sucker MCs. Like the Cottonmouth Kings cover of Ghetto Boys Mind Playing Tricks on Me is actually pretty good.
Yeah, the Cottonmouth Kings are pretty good at what they do.
I mean, it's it's their own thing, it's their own style. I didn't hate it. I really enjoyed it, actually. There's a terrible cover of Bring the Pain by Method Man. But guys,
rock artist Method Man.
Okay, the first thing that I want to say is ICP is not a rock group.
I know,
doing rap covers.
But the weird thing is, like, they're constantly categorized as rock, constantly.
Yeah.
So weird to me. They're definitely rappers.
It's just all the rock guitar that laces their shit.
Right.
I'm not aware of another group in the world that has the word Posse in their name that is.
How about guys on this album? Just a Jerky Boys skit thrown in.
Sure.
A prank call right at the end.
Rock group Jerky Boys.
Seems like it goes. This album, if you put this on, if you listen to the first track, Stained featuring Limp Bizkit, Public Enemy song Bring the Noise, it is the most year 2000. Like, this album was probably recorded, it says it was recorded in 1998, 99. So I'm going to say in like November of 99 is probably when they recorded this. And it is the most 2000 sound.
Yeah, that's the stigmata of music, because Stigmata is the most year 2000 movie that you could possibly watch with your eyeballs.
I loved it. Posse on Broadway. They did say that I guess for that album the lyrics are a little bit different. On the compilation album, they couldn't say Posse on Vernor, they had to say Posse on Broadway, which is in the liner notes.
That makes sense, because I did remember it being Posse on Broadway when I first heard this song.
I remembered it as being Posse on Broadway.
I just wanted to say this song, when being a huge fan of ICP, when we found that compilation and then seeing it on this Forgotten Freshness, getting super excited again. I actually listened to not his name, Sir Mix-a-Lot. And when I don't remember the name of the album that My Posse's on Broadway was on in the 80s. But I remember, and this is a shout out to my friend Pugsy, who has no idea what Insane Clown Posse is, but I grew up with him, and we used to listen to an eclectic range of music. And so we had like the Doochie Crew 2 and the Fresh Prince, Will Smith, as Fresh Prince, and we had Sir Mix-a-Lot, and then like Slayer, and like Suicidal Tendencies, and just like this weird mix of we would listen. And so the album that had this song on it, I believe it did. It had like stupid songs like Buttermilk Biscuits, these weird like Sir Mix-a-Lot songs. But I loved My Posse's on Broadway, so to hear ICP, I was so excited. So I definitely.
Yeah, I don't know whether I've ever actually heard the originals. Version of this song. I'm sure it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
This is one of the rare times that I actually know a rap song that they're covering.
They did it for you.
They did.
I never really liked this. Like, I didn't dislike this cover, but it wasn't like a track that I would like put on or like think about. But I certainly like it a lot more now than I did at the time.
Yeah.
I think it's also them really showing a lot of love to Detroit, and
for sure,
calling out a lot of like what I assume are local places to them, dropping in a lot of shout outs to, references to their favorite things around town, as almost like a love letter to their neighborhood.
And an awesome diss to
Kid Rock.
Kid Rock.
So junkie you with a rebel flag and some cowboy boots. Yeah, very good. I don't know. Anything else to say? Like, it's fun. Like you said, it's a fun song, and I appreciate it more now than I ever did before. So,
well,
Yeah.
he starts it all. The thing that I like the most about it is he starts it off and he's like chilling in it's our home away from home. It's their black bucket Hearst. It's the wagon, right? Like the Dragula, that they
Yes.
drive around town, and it's overflowing with people, right? They have like 13 or 14 people in it by the end. You know, they've got women spilling out of every, like, the hood. They're on the hood. They're in the trunk, you know, and
it's a good visual.
yeah. And they're just having fun, really just going around town and getting a bite to eat, you know.
It's like a ICP Muppet movie. It's like the Electric Mayhem from Great Muppet Caper. It's just everyone like fucking hanging off of this car and just driving around town.
Yeah. Good time.
All right, shall we move along?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Fly Away, featuring Zug Island. And if you haven't taken a listen, go ahead and take a listen right now. One thing I would like to say is that I like this song very much. But I'm going to go ahead and give a little background real quick. So I don't think we've talked about, we probably talked about Zug Island before on here. Zug Island was the first rock band. There it is again. They were the first rock band signed to Psychopathic, and I probably to date only. Well, I don't even know. I have no fucking clue. But it was.
Well, there was the band that performed in Let's Go All the Way.
Mm-hmm.
They signed but never released anything, and that was before Zug Island.
Okay, but it was touted at the time that they were putting this album, that they put out the first Zug Island album, that they were like, oh, it was, I don't know if it was hyped as the first rock album to be on Psychopathic, but it was like Zug Island is the rock band on Psychopathic.
No,
what?
You're completely right. I think that I can't remember, it had a really weird name.
Crack Ties?
The
group.
The band that played guitar on that played the music on Let's Go All the Way.
Oh yeah.
But I remember on that episode, on the Let's Go All the Way episode, we talked about how they were trying to do something, and it failed. But Violent J always wanted to be in a band, and I think that's the connection, right? That you're going to get to right now.
Yeah. So I don't. Another thing that Jay talks about in his on his book. I don't remember which Mike it was at the time. I don't remember if it was already Mike P had come aboard or if it was with Mike Clark. But Jay was going through a period of time where he was feeling a lot of stuff. He was in his feelings, and he wanted to do like a rock album, like a emo-ish sort of like hard rock album. And him and whatever producer, whatever Mike he was working with at the time, they did like a whole album of rock songs that Violent J wrote, and he was going to be the singer on, and they recorded an entire album of rock shit. And then Jay was like listening to the stuff, and like they were getting ready to like think about putting it out, and he got like super self-conscious and was like, I'm not a singer, I don't know what I was thinking, I can't put this out with me singing this rock stuff. So they put a band together. They put Zug Island together, and they basically hired a band, but like put a band together. And Zug Island then became a band and like put a bunch of stuff out. But at the time that this was together, the first Zug Island album, everything was written by Jay. And basically the guy just used all of Jay's melodies and all of his vocal tracks as like guidelines, and he basically like sang the same stuff that Jay had sung, but like just sang it like a singer, as someone who can sing. So not that Jay can't, just like probably in his words. So the first Zug Island album is basically just like if you listen to it, you could hear so much of Jay, and like there's several tracks on the first Zug Island album, which is Cracked Tiles, that ICP is on a bunch of tracks. But that's what the first Zug Island album is. And this song Fly was Fly Away was the first song that Zug Island ever recorded. And I don't know if that's to mean that this is the first song that they ever recorded once the actual band Zug Island came aboard, or if it's the first one that Jay did, because most of this is just ICP, and then the singer of Zug Island sings like the singing parts of the chorus, and apparently this is supposedly this is a different version than the version that appears on Cracked Tiles. I listened to a little bit of the version that is on Cracked Tiles, and I couldn't really see a significant difference, but I didn't listen to it all the way through, and two, when I started listening to it and it wasn't evident right away like that it was super different, because it's just the same as this version. It's, ICP doing the verses and Zug Island doing the choruses, and so then I went back and I listened to the first 3 tracks off of the first Zug Island album, because here's the thing. Other than this song off of Forgotten Freshness 3, I never once listened to a single second of Zug Island anything ever, because in my mind, I just assumed it was going to suck. And I always just assumed there's no way that can be good, because it's year 2003, between 2001 and 2003, rock that's from a rap label. There's absolutely no way that that's good. Based on the first 2.5 tracks that I've listened to off of this album, it is shockingly good. There's the first actual track on the album is called Fire, and it's got ICP on it, and it kicks a lot of ass, and it has the fastest, most intense raps I've ever heard Violet J do. He does a fast rapping section, and I've never heard him do it before, ever. And to date, there's a lot of stuff I haven't heard him do, but that's the only time I've ever heard Jay rap like that, and it's definitely worth checking out. It's on Spotify, and it's the second track off of Cracked Tiles. It's called Fire. You should check it out, because it's pretty crazy.
That's fucking awesome, man. Yeah, so I had a really weird experience. You said earlier that I was texting you, so when I first put this record on, each track, I think I sent you guys a text, because each time I was like, oh my god, the first Cartoon Nightmares, I loved it so much, and Posse on Vernor, oh, this is such a cool cover, and then we got to this one, and I think I said something like, this is really awesome in a totally different way.
It's true. It's very Enya-y.
Yeah, in the background, there's yodeling. Yeah, it's the return to innocence.
Yeah, it's so good.
In the liner notes, Violent J writes, I assume it's Violent J that wrote all this stuff. He says, close your eyes and slowly and softly scratch your balls to this one. It's the maximum experience in deepness.
It's true. I don't remember if it was a track. I think it was a track off of Dark Lotus. But there was a track that we talked about recently where it was oh, this is the spiritual ancestor of Miracles. And this is the second installment of that, of them being man, fucking life, man.
Right. A little bit more touchy-feely of that same idea. I thought I wrote the same thing. It was when we were on Dark Lotus, and I was talking about how much I think it was last week, how much their imagination and the things that were the pieces or components of what their general play was as kids, the types of environments that they imagine and things that they fantasized about as kids with their imagination about the way that the world worked and how they wanted to be, or the best versions of themselves that they imagined. I feel like that's what a majority of what Violent J's music is about, is sharing those things, and it's a sort of way that they capture a youthfulness, which is kind of why I think that juggaloism is, to me, it's sort of associated with kind of immaturity. It may be in the same way that people who like Disney, that's associated with a youthfulness or whatever. But I think that that's also part of maybe a cool thing that makes Juggalos unique, and maybe a little bit cooler, is not fronting about being excited about stuff that made them excited as a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that I feel like as our generation gets older and the generation younger than us gets older, becomes more of general accepted thing that like now there's, I don't know, high-end collectible adult toys, you know, not adult toys, action figures.
Well, I mean, you're not incorrect.
Right. Action figures, you know? So yeah, it's like, you could think, I don't know that everybody, probably a lot of people, maybe even who like ICP are going to listen to this and be like, what is this? Cause it's a different direction, man. It's a different feeling. But I really, really enjoyed listening to it. Super different. And they even say in the liner notes that this is meant to be like a preview to get you excited to listen to Zug Island, the album that was coming out later.
I love this song. I really, really like this song. And I think that everything that you said is completely accurate and spot on. And I think that there's a lot of ICP. I think there's a lot of what ICP does that to them is like when you get super excited about something that you like found out and you like, or like, I think so much of what ICP actually is like when you like see like a crazy fucking like horror movie and you're like, oh, my friend's gotta see this, and you like have to show it to them, or like you find a rad band or a rad song or a rad TV show and you're like, check it out, dude, or a rad comic book and you're like, check it out, dude, check it out, this is so cool, check it out, we gotta experience this together. And I think that that's what they evoke so much, and I think that's what sort of like what they're always kind of striving for is just like, and that's what fosters that sense of like familiarity and familialness and everything else that you know their fan base, you know, sticks around for, is just like sharing experiences together. And like ICP has never been afraid to be like, here's what I'm into, and it may be nerdy or whatever, but who cares? And also like, man, you ever like think about this shit and then like, you know, basically like have a late night conversation with a friend, and like maybe the stuff that you're saying isn't necessarily deep, but it resonates with you and your friend at the time that you're having the conversation.
Well, dude, and I mean, if you think of put it in the context of the era, what you said earlier in the episode, where Violent J is having some things that are happening in his life that's allowing him to kind of think about his life in a different way for the first time, to kind of feel a release from some control or feel some freedom with his emotional state, and then he has also talked about what we talked about last week. Was it last week where they said, you know, they had an idea of being famous, but then they redirected and refocused their energy on this community that they're developing. Mm-hmm. And so in all that, if they're so connected to their to this community that they support each other, and then you look at a song like this where he's saying, come and fly with me, like if you just spread your wings, like if you just believe, and you know, this experience happened to me, there's all this magic in the world, like instead of him just singing or rapping about a fantasy, which is what they were doing in all their previous albums, of just an escape, an emotional escape, now he's actually sort of laying instructions or saying like, we can rise up from it and make it a reality, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes a new motivation for the band, to try to help people to actually achieve positive things in their life, not just to escape the things that are difficult for them, but to actually find a better situation for themselves, to be happier. And how do you not like that? Like, it's, you know, it's kind of cheesy or whatever. It's like spread your wings and fly away. They're like talking about hippie shit, like out in nature and things, touchy-feely kind of stuff. But yeah, I just don't know how you don't feel that like positivity and think that that's not a cool thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been very quiet, letting you guys talk about this song because
you hate it.
I used to really hate it. I don't even know that I even listened to the entirety of the song when I was listening to this album back in the day. Because like it just started, and you know the Enya chants were on, and he's just like, and I was like, skip. and if I made it through the first verse, I definitely skipped it when it chorus. Listening to it this time through, I definitely like it a lot better. And mainly because of just how positive and cool it is, and a lot of the things that you guys were just talking about, from just people experiencing things like the joy of experiencing things as a child and taking that into adulthood and still not letting themselves become complacent and not be and not seeing the wonders of the world and how joyous and wonderful things are. So I appreciate all that in the song. It's still kind of a boring song to me, certainly not my favorite type of song that they would do. Not because of the message, just that type of music, I think. But I definitely like this song a lot more. Probably will never listen again. But yeah, I mean, but I don't want to poop on the song because it's actually a really good song. And
don't
so
poop on the song.
That's mainly.
And that reminds me of a really awesome thing. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember that when Moby had his breakout, which was called Play, was the name of the album. It was like almost all of the tracks on that album like featured like samples of like spirituals and stuff. Like I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Like there's a lot of like there's just a ton of like old samples of like African American people like just singing spirituals and stuff, and like that's like what the bulk of that album was like built off of. And anyway, there's a podcast by Gimlet Media called Heavyweight, and the concept of the podcast is that the host brings on people who like feel like they need closure in their lives in some aspect, and he helps them try and get that closure. The best episode of that podcast is definitely worth your time, no matter who you are, because basically this guy comes on and he used to be friends with Moby, and one day he let Moby borrow his, like, he had this box set of like Library of Congress or whatever, like this 4-disc set of like field recordings of people singing spirituals, and he was like, "Oh, Moby, you'd like really like this," and he like loaned it to him, and then Moby took it and made like his most successful album of all time and like became a star and never talked to that guy again. And he used all of these samples, and the podcast is really awesome because like the host actually takes the guy and they like get a chance to like go to Moby's house and talk to him about this, and it's really good. So yeah, it's definitely worth your time no matter who you are. So that's how samples got us there, just you talking about libraries and samples. Anyway, I like this track, and do you think we should end it there for now?
Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks to everybody for sticking around. We're sorry we didn't get to It, which I'm sure you were all anxious for us to talk about.
It's one of my.
All right. So next week we will try and do It, Run, Nothing But a Bitch Thing, and Just Another Crazy Click featuring 3-6 Mafia and Twisted, which sometimes will appear on music services as Just Another Crazy Chick, because they decided to spell click like you're clicking your fingers, C-L-I-C-K. So sometimes music services are not familiar with what the name of this song actually is. So anyway, we'll try and talk about those 4 next time. But anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We're excited to be on this album. We're excited to finish this album. And another thing we're excited about, Ryan, is that
oh hell yeah.
So some things have happened since last we recorded. I believe we referenced it here on this podcast at some point. In the month of January, or like the last 2 weeks of January, first 2 weeks of February, Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope were supposed to be doing solo tours that would overlap. Violent J was going to go start from the east and move west, and Shaggy 2 Dope was going to start from the west and move east, and they were going to crisscross, like throw Mama from the train. And then they were going to meet up in New Orleans for Juggalo Weekend, which is February 16th and 17th. But Fearless Fred Fury, the latest ICP album, the latest Joker's card, in fact, which we had talked about before, got delayed. It drops on February 15th. And on February 15th, in several towns, I think like 12 towns, 12 cities nationwide, they're going to be doing CD release party / listening parties So if it's near your area and if you haven't heard about it, you might want to go check that out. We found out that ICP is actually the only one they're gonna actually physically be at of these listening parties is in Los Angeles on February 15th. So Ryan and I are going. And
hell yeah, we are.
If any of you are in the area or thinking about going, please say hi or hit us up on social media or whatever and tell us where you're going to be and say hi. We're really stoked about it. Everyone who goes to the listening parties gets a CD, which is pretty rad, and it's only like $15 plus handling fees to like go to one of these. So you should try and check it out and seek it out. And we're excited. ICP is supposed to be there. Maybe it says some other special guests are supposed to be at the LA one. So we're hoping for good stuff. We're hoping maybe they'll play a live track or two, maybe throw a little Spago, rockin' live from Tennessee. But yeah, we're excited. We're excited to go. It's gonna be fun.
Hell yeah, man! Can't wait. That sounds like it sounds like a really, really good time.
Yeah,
So.
and they're gonna play the whole album. We're going to hear it. We get to take it home, put it in our car, and ride around with it, listen to it.
I'll have an ICP CD again.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. maybe they'll be signing them. Maybe they'll get a signed ICP CD.
Yeah, I think they like hanging out and talking to folks. I mean, it'll probably be like a $10 or $15 signed 8x10 or $10 photograph.
No,
They're carnies.
I mean like once they get you in, there's gonna be a merch stand. I think like that's where they make their money.
Well, cool, man. I'm down to buy some ICP merch.
Oh yeah, but we're excited. Maybe Steve will come down.
Oh, I wish.
It's okay, but
That would be lovely, Steve.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, if that's in your area, guess who's coming to your big town? You should go check it out. And then if you're in New Orleans, you should definitely fucking go to Juggalo Weekend and tell us all about it, how rad it was. And you can tell us all about it on Twitter or Instagram at Dim Carnival, or you can email us dimcarnival@gmail.com. We're very excited that you guys hang around and listen to us, and we're excited anytime we get a new review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. So you go ahead and leave one of those reviews for us if you please, because it helps us out a lot. And tell a friend. Maybe if you think that they'll enjoy any of our episodes, just shoot them a link and do us a solid. We're trying to think of some ways to get you guys some more content. So stay tuned on that front. We're going to try and beef up our presence a little bit. So, but yeah, until next time, I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
Guys, do you know anything about this arm in my trunk?
There's an arm in my trunk.